And we
And
are recording this morning Judy Harrington from the Apple Valley congregation. And thank you so much for joining us, Judy.
Mhm.
We're doing the interviews and have sent her some questions, but I might ask her some others that are beyond what we're asking everybody, staying kind of within this framework of 7 questions. But uh, Judy, don't want to say she's new to our mission center, but it has been how many years, Judy? Is it 8 or 10?
10, and we're going on 11.
Oh, wow. Okay. Time flies, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I
Hard to believe.
remember when you were first
Mhm.
coming to Minnesota and looking for a place to live and congregation.
Right.
So, because I don't know much about your background, you and your husband Scott were both professors in
hmm
Nebraska. Can you just tell me a little bit about that first?
Um, well, we were at the University of Nebraska in Omaha, and Scott was in the counseling department, and I was a faculty member of a scholarship program uh, called Goodrich. It was a very high profile and gave out scholarships based on need. And we really, the point was to have as much diversity as we could have. And so that's how I spent my professorship. Prior to that, I was in administration. I was the director of the Learning Center for, oh gosh, maybe 10, 12 years. And then uh, I was hired by Goodrich. They were looking for people, and I had the right kind of background. And it was a wonderful opportunity, and I had a great time. So, loved it.
Well,
Born.
thank you. That's so interesting. Um, Lots of learning, and I know Judy continues to learn and continues to read
Mhm.
voraciously. We've been involved in a 2 or 3 or 4 different book clubs online,
Right.
so uh, I'll be interested to hear the rest of your story. So I'm going to start with our questions,
Mhm.
and the first one is just tell me a little bit about your religious upbringing.
Okay. I was baptized at 8 in the Des Moines uh, church, RLDS Church, Des Moines Central, and have been a member all my life, as was my mother and my grandmother, who came over from Wales, was one of those converts. And so the church has always been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And it's had a primary impact on how I've lived my life. Oh, I don't
And
know.
my second question is really, what was your first interaction with the church? But maybe you can just tell me a childhood memory
Mhm.
or memories of
Well, I can remember
what you
I grew up
recall.
in the Des Moines Central Church congregation, and as did Scott and my best friend. And so that group, we were all 8 at about the same time. So we were all baptized the same Sunday morning. So, I have that. But uh, my foundation that I really remember was in the Des Moines Central congregation there in Iowa. Um, it's, as I said, it's my membership in this church has been a primary impact in my life.
And
And
I'm
even,
sure that you had the Sunday school and maybe the junior church and the vacation Bible
yes,
school and all
all
of
of that.
that. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you had Zion's League and all of
Yes,
those things
indeed.
as well growing up.
We did. We had every bit of that. The Des Moines Central congregation was the largest one, I think, there in Iowa. And so we had a big Zion's League group of, minimum of 16 to 20 people.
Oh,
And
wow.
a number of them all went to the same high school. Scott and I did, and a couple of others. And so our lives intersected in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
in Des Moines, at East High, the RLDS church was well known because we were kind of 2 blocks from the high school, and the principal over there said, "Keep sending these RLDS kids to us,"
Oh,
because
wow. Isn't that
yeah,
amazing?
yeah,
Well,
because it was a big school.
and you have known Scott since at least 8 years old, maybe
Mhm.
before,
Little bit.
even longer than David and I knew each other. We met
Oh,
in Zion's League after he moved. So
uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah,
interesting so that's been a number of years that
it has.
relationship that you've had. Well, that's
Yep.
fabulous. I'm just wondering, do you have one or two special testimonies of God leading or blessings that stand out you'd like to share?
Well, the one that will always come to mind was when in my early 30s, they found a mass on my lung. And so I was going to have some pretty serious surgery. And the congregation there rallied around, and there were prayers for Judy going all over. It just didn't look good because it had grown fast. And so they were preparing the family for the worst. And had people, one of our members was a truck driver out in California. And the night before surgery, he went to our nearest congregation he'd never been to before and said, "We've got to pray for Judy." There were prayers all over. And when they got in there, indeed, they found a mass. And the doctor's words were, it looked like it had been wiped clean. So they were never able to figure out what it had been or what happened. I tend to believe all those prayers
Absolutely.
really kind of got me through
Wow.
it. And so that's
That's
what
fabulous.
that,
Fabulous testimony.
mhm.
Are you able to share that very often?
I don't too often because everyone there in Des Moines and in Iowa knew that. I mean, there were prayer and around the world, not around the world, but around the country because friends from Graceland and everything, the word
Oh,
just went
yeah.
out. Pray for Judy. Pray for Judy.
That's
So
fabulous. We know it
uh
works.
yeah, I have to think it was truly a blessing. And it left me with the feeling that I don't think you pay things like that back, but that there was something I was probably going to be called to do that I would never have imagined. So be open was what I told myself. So
And I know you have accepted priesthood calls, so you
yes.
obviously have been open to
Hmm.
what the Lord's expecting. Any
I
other special? I mean, that would be impossible to top, but I don't know if you have another story or anything that you want to share at this point. But
just that I've sensed a presence in my life. Uh, and that was one manifestation that was pretty dramatic, but had an impact not only on me, but my family and people who knew my story.
oh wow,
So,
absolutely. Well, my next question is, what do you think is important for Community of Christ Church to be doing?
well, I guess the first thing is I think we need to be reaching out. Uh, uh, we need to reach out to those around us. And for me, it's never dismiss an opportunity to do that or to think it's not going to make a difference because we just don't know. So I'd like to think that most people that know me and knew me, particularly in Omaha and there at the university, probably would have, not because I went around talking about it all the time, but I was often described as Judy's a person of faith.
Ah,
And so I thought that was a lot to live up to, but it did, I mean, because of the experiences I've had, I do have faith. So,
well, there are definitely opportunities for reaching out now. and more important than ever to do that in a variety of ways, however we can. How do you think we can share the gospel? Or maybe it's simply the reaching out in the life that you're talking about.
Well, I think, yeah, I think it would be that. I think it would be doing your best to try and model what you think a Christ life like life would be, um, without being pushy or saying, here's what I think it should be, so you should do the same thing. It's just there are basic tenets of a faith in Christ that hopefully we try to live by and that I try to live by. I don't always make the mark. That's an understatement. But I kind of think that people can sense when you're trying, that you're trying to live it. So,
There's a lot of people that profess their Christian faith, but aren't really exhibiting it. And so I think
yeah.
you're right. Living it, modeling it has to be what we do. And yeah,
As I
there
said,
needs to be more of those.
well, and know that you're probably not going to make that mark every time for certain. I mean, there are times you didn't, but to know that if that's in your mind as a goal, I'm here as a representative. Let me try. Let me try in whatever way I can.
I love that line. I have to write that down. I'm here as a representative.
Yeah.
Wow, if we could just keep that, yeah, in our mind. Um, do you have anybody in particular who's been most influential in your church life
In my church life,
or
it,
religious life?
yeah, religious like the name that just came to me right away was Cecil Ettinger. He was our youth
Oh,
minister when Scott and I were uh, early teens through our teen years. And
how lucky for you.
oh my goodness,
Wow.
I know he was truly a shepherd and he had a particular witness and ministry to bring to the youth. And we were fortunate enough to be the youth at that time. He was our pastor in Des Moines. Scott and I were in high school, and he had a profound impact on us. And he really saw the potential in each one of us and uh, would call us to what you're capable of doing. And you're a model, whether you realize it or not. He stressed that. And he was just such a dynamic yet caring minister that we were really fortunate to have that influence on us throughout our teen years.
And he became quite an influence throughout the church.
He
So
did, yeah,
beyond your congregation for
beyond
sure.
Des Moines. But he
Yes,
kind of got to
absolutely.
start there in Des Moines, and yeah.
Um, okay, I'm almost to the last question here. I guess
Mhm.
it is the last. What do you think is important for others to know about you that maybe we haven't already mentioned?
I- You know, I the thing that just comes to mind is hopefully they know and can see that I'm a believer. I'm a believer in trying to live Christ's way. And I miss the mark and I don't try to impose it on others or set myself up as a model. And I think maybe that was the influence of Cecil as a teenager, that you're going to be in situations and you can picture Christ being right there with you. And if you want him to turn away and not see what you're doing, think about that.
Yeah.
And he had a profound influence on that group of teenagers that were fortunate enough to know him during that time. And I think it was maybe 15, 20 years later at a conference down at World Conference. We had a get together of Des Moines people, and our Zions League was there. And I think it was something like 80% of us had gone on to be pastors where we were.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he was there, and we all said, we didn't have, Cecil was our model. He was our guide. He got very, if you knew him at all, he could get very teary-eyed and emotional, and said how much that meant to him. And, I think for myself, I think most of us were thinking, how fortunate were we that during the tumultuous years that teen years can be, he had this influence there. And above all, he loved us. And he
Mm.
wanted the best for us, and he called out the best in us, I think, to the
How
point
important is
it
that
is,
to
it really
expect?
is.
Yeah.
He did. And our I think I told you, the principal of this big high school there in Des Moines said, keep sending those RLDS kids. We know we get them. We got the best stuff here. So, it was, and Cecil was really active too with the school there. So it was a really wonderful way to grow up.
Absolutely. It's a shame that there's not a lot more of that. I know my Zions League years were important as well and
Mhm.
forming for
Right,
sure. I
right.
just want to mention, I know you haven't said anything about it, but Judy is very concerned about the environment. We have had
Mhm.
some environmental book clubs, and she has joined a group in her Apple Valley region area. And so I know that she also walks the talk and is concerned about those kinds of things. And I'm sure there's others, but it you're that's just an example of modeling. It truly is of, you
Mhm.
know, stepping out into what's important.
Hopefully so.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing. If there's anything else that you want to share at this moment, you go right ahead. And when you're finished, we will end our recording. But I just
Right.
really appreciate
Mhm.
hearing your story.
I'll be interested to see how it turns out, and to see similarities among those of us that were, you know, raised up in this, and yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to do it. It makes me realize again how fortunate I've been
Yes,
throughout my life to have that influence.
absolutely. Well, thank you, Judy. And we're going to stop the recording now. And
Okay.
I hope whoever is watching these recordings that they check out each one because each one is a fabulous story. And most of the time I'm wiping tears, just like I did today. So thank you again. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.